My wife made me dress as a waiter at my own retirement party. You're better seen than heard, she whispered. Her boss laughed. My daughter clinked a glass and called me the help. I smiled, then pulled out the folder that would shatter them all. I served pigs and blankets to people who used to come to me for job referrals. No play for me. Not even a seat. Just a black vest, a starched apron, and a plastic name tag that said Mitch, my actual name, printed like a stranger's. They didn't even bother with a fake one. That was my wife's idea. A bit of fun, she said. Dress code for the theme. You're retired now, Mitch. Let's keep you useful. She said it with a laugh. A wink. Then whispered in my ear just before the guests arrived, you're better seen than heard tonight. Don't ruin this. She meant the guest list. Her boss. The investors. The 3 different men she cheated on me with, maybe 4, I've stopped counting. All invited. All respected. And I just stood there, sweaty fingers balancing hors d'oeuvres on silver trays I'd paid for. It wasn't the betrayal. Not really. It was the hierarchy of it. The staging. She turned my life into her show. I was a set piece. A pathetic backdrop for her rise. And she knew it. Everyone did. Even my daughter. About an hour in, she clinked her wine glass with a manicured nail and raised her voice over the jazz trio. I just want to thank the staff, especially this gentleman here, gesturing to me like a trained dog, for keeping the pigs and blankets coming. You've earned your tip tonight, Dad. Laughter. Polite, brittle, cruel. The kind of laughter that sounds like glass cracking underweight. I smiled. Not because I was okay. Because I knew what was in the folder sitting under the bar. The one I'd slipped behind the gin bottle while no one was looking. Labeled, Marigold Holdings, Fraud Brief, 2014 to 2023. My wife didn't marry me for love. She married me for access. To my name. To my network. To the family firm I inherited and foolishly trusted her to help manage while I slowed down. She didn't slow me down. She buried me alive. Over 9 years, she siphoned money out of the trust. Created shadow shell accounts. Laundered through real estate flips and bogus foundation donations. She had help, of course. Her boss, her lover, and the man she introduced me to tonight as our private equity miracle worker. They all smiled at me with teeth too white. I served them scallops. And when the band started up again, when the party found its second wind and my daughter slipped away to snort something off a mirror in the powder room, I retrieved the folder. Placed it gently on the cake table. Then picked up the microphone. Excuse me, I said. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming. Eyes turned. A few clapped. Most were confused. My wife shot me a warning look. She mouthed no. I nodded. But before we cut the cake, I'd like to share a little retirement gift of my own. And I opened the folder. Read aloud the routing numbers. The offshore accounts. The fake board members. The signature forgeries. Someone dropped a champagne flute. My wife's boss, Grant, made a choked sound and lunged for the stage. Too late. Because in that moment, the room flipped. Phones came out. Flash bulbs. Whispers. I turned to the projector screen, meant for a slideshow of my career highlights, and inserted the USB I'd taped inside the folder. Photos. Email screenshots. Voice memo transcriptions. One, in particular, landed like a funeral bell. God, Mitch is so soft. I could drain his accounts in my sleep. My wife's voice. Crystal clear. The audio echoed through the hotel ballroom as the jazz trio fell silent. That's when I walked off stage. Calm. Unshaken. And by the time hotel security arrived, called by her, I'd already handed copies to 3 journalists, 1 forensic accountant, and, most poetically, my daughter's best friend from college who now worked at the IRS. That was the beginning. Update 1. That's not your money anymore. I didn't go home that night. Let her flail. Let the storm swell. I parked 3 blocks down, leaned the seat back, and listened to my phone vibrate itself into a coma, 42 missed calls, 24 texts, none worth reading. She wasn't crying. She was calculating. By morning, every mutual account had been touched. Frozen. Altered. But I wasn't stupid. I'd spent the last 6 months slowly untangling myself from the web she thought she owned. I was quiet. Deliberate. And she never saw it. Every withdrawal she made that night came from accounts I'd already emptied. I watched her try to transfer $100,000 into a holding company we used to share, only to be met with a system error. I watched the panic ripple through her in real time via texts. Where the fuck is the balance? You changed the login? I swear to God, Mitch, if this is your idea of revenge. My lawyer says I can still sue for emotional sabotage. Sweetheart, the man you decorated like hotel staff at his own party? He was 2 steps ahead. I waited until noon. Then sent her a single message. Meet me at the firm. Conference room C. 1 hour. No lawyers. No daughter. Just you. She showed. Wearing sunglasses indoors, a fresh designer coat she hadn't paid for, and that tight-jawed smile she used whenever her world tilted slightly off axis. You've humiliated me, she started, dropping her purse like she owned the room. Do you have any idea what you've done? I let her talk. Because she was wrong about one thing. I wasn't the one who ruined her. She just thought she was bulletproof. That no one would ever turn the mirror around. Sit, I said. She didn't. But she stopped pacing. I opened the laptop, turned the screen toward her. Do you recognize this name? I asked. She stared. Orca 3 Holdings. Seychelles. Your signature on the founding documents. Her face cracked. Slight, but enough. You know, I said a smarter person would have used aliases. You did it first. But then you got sloppy. You signed for a lease in Panama using your maiden name. Left a paper trail. MIT. And your daughter? I cut her off. Did she know she was the beneficiary of 6 accounts holding assets tied to fraudulent medical grants? Or did you just put her name down to spread risk in case you got caught? Her knees hit the chair behind her like a marionette with snapped strings. I slid over the printouts. Charts. Tax evasion records. The charity that never existed. The accountant she thought was blackmail proof? I'd flipped him 6 weeks ago with a simple email. He has a gambling problem. So do I. Let's deal. She started to shake. Then the real meltdown began. You can't take everything from me, she whispered. You don't get to do that. I built this life. You built a fantasy on top of a felony, I said. And now I get to be the demolition crew. She reached for her phone. I took it. Held up the next folder. This is the subpoena. Going out tomorrow unless you do exactly what I say. You wouldn't. I already have. Silence. Then, what do you want, she hissed. Not an apology. Not remorse. Just strategy. I leaned back, steepled my fingers, and told her. You're going to confess. In exchange for what? Minimal prison time. My silence with the IRS. And I paused. Full legal emancipation from our daughter. She becomes an adult in the eyes of the law. No ties to your crimes. No fallback. You bastard, she breathed. Just an old man with time, I said. She cried then. Not for me. For the empire crumbling under her heels. But I wasn't done. You'll write it out, I told her. The real story. Names, dates, how you siphoned the inheritance my father left to the firm into your consulting pipelines. How you paid for that plastic surgery retreat in Monaco using Cancer Foundation money. How you forged my signature on 2 land deals and blamed me when they collapsed. I'll lose everything. You already did. You just didn't know it yet. That was yesterday. This morning I mailed copies of the folder to 5 people. Her boss's wife. Her mother, who still sends me birthday cards. The anonymous tip line at the SEC. The head of the board at Marigold Holdings. My daughter. The last one? Came with a note. You toasted me like a joke. Hope you're ready to inherit the punchline. Because she wasn't innocent. You don't call your father the help without knowing what side of the knife you're on. Update 2. I burned down the legacy they stole and left the ashes in her handbag. The confession came at 4:17 a.m. I know because my phone buzzed exactly once and I trained myself not to hope anymore. But this time it wasn't a threat. Not a tantrum. Just a file attachment and 4 words. Is this enough? I opened the document. It was everything. Names. Wire transfers. How she funneled nearly $500,000 through shell nonprofits into an eco-realty scam built on land the firm never actually owned. How she let her boss, Grant, use firm accounts to bankroll a lake house in Maine, complete with spa invoices disguised as consulting fees. There were even photos. One, in particular, stuck out. Her and Grant. On a yacht. Laughing champagne mid-spray. Timestamped. Same weekend our daughter graduated high school. No one from the family showed up for her. Because we were too busy with investors. That morning I printed every page. Bound it with black spiral rings. Labeled it in bold Arial, the Marigold Memoir, Volume 1. And delivered it by hand to the boardroom. I didn't warn anyone. Just walked in during a quarterly earnings meeting. Set the packet on the table like coffee and smiled. Don't stop on my account, I said. Just figured you'd want to read what you've all been living in denial of. They did. No one touched their coffee after page 4. I wasn't trying to save the company. I was there to salt the earth. Because here's what they didn't know. 3 days earlier, I'd contacted a demolition contractor under the guise of decommissioning an old warehouse property the firm had been sitting on. Signed the papers. Paid the full sum from the firm's dormant emergency surplus account. One my wife had long forgotten about. That property was the original headquarters. My father's first office. The same place she filmed her wedding photos in. I gave the order the moment the board opened the final page of her confession. By the time their eyes lifted from the table, a plume of smoke was already curling into the morning sky 10 blocks away. Someone gasped. Grant's face twisted in slow-motion panic as I turned the conference call monitor toward them. Live footage. Dust clouds. Bricks collapsing. The bronze founder's wall plaque split down the middle like a snapped headstone. My God, whispered one of the investors. That building was supposed to be historical. Finished. It was. Now it's metaphor. One board member tried to shout something legal. I tossed him a flash drive. All assets covered. Permits in place. Full transfer of liability already filed. You can't sue me for burning down a ghost. Because here's the thing. I didn't just light a match. I left the matches in her car. Title change. New VIN. Insurance purchased in her name 5 months ago via one of the shell companies she registered. She paid for the fire. She drove it there. She gets to explain it. Let's talk about my daughter. Because I know that's the question forming in your throat. Why drag her in? She sent me a TikTok that night. A joke. Some stupid trend about dodging broke parents and flying first class with your mom's boyfriend. She was in Italy. With Grant. The man who once told me, in my own kitchen, you should be grateful someone still finds your wife impressive. I watched that video 5 times before I made the call. To the one person I swore I'd never speak to again. Her biological father. See, she doesn't know. That man she calls dad? That's me. The one who raised her. Paid for her braces. Took her to therapy after her first heartbreak. But biologically, he's someone else. My wife's summer friend. The one who visited once every few years, with wine and fake concern and eyes too similar to hers. He thought I never knew. I knew. I just waited. And when I called, he picked up on the second ring. Why now? He asked. Because I'm giving her back, I said. He laughed. Nervously. Then I explained what was coming. How her accounts would be frozen. Her credit wrecked. Her name attached to real estate she never owned. Signed in ink she didn't remember. How the law would come for her next unless she had somewhere to run. And I gave him that out. You've got 3 days, I said. After that, she's on her own. He hung up without another word. That was yesterday. Today, my daughter posted another video. Different tone. No music. Just tears. Captioned, I don't know what's happening. I can't access my bank account. My phone bill didn't go through. Someone please tell me what's going on. No one did. I watched it loop twice, then shut my laptop. Final note of this update? My wife showed up again. Not at the house. At the grave. My father's. She stood there, heels sinking into wet soil, mascara smearing like rot, and screamed at the headstone. You did this. You made him this way. I stepped out from behind the trees. Said nothing. Just handed her one last envelope. Inside, her passport shredded. Her new identity cancelled. Her offshore access codes scrambled. The fake degrees she padded her resume with exposed to the press. She opened her mouth. I turned and walked away. I'm not staying for the scream. Next update? Court dates. Mugshots. And one final twist she'll never see coming. It wasn't just her money I took. It was her legacy. And by the time the dust clears, the only thing with her name on it will be the obituary for everything she ever built. Update 3. The family vault was empty. I buried them in it anyway. The courtroom smelled like lemon-scented despair. Bleach and perfume and power ties. My wife sat 2 rows ahead, hands folded, hair pinned up in the same style she wore to our wedding. As if pretending time hadn't passed would rewind the verdict. Didn't. The judge read every charge. Wire fraud. Identity misrepresentation. Embezzlement. Use of nonprofit funds for personal gain. She didn't blink until they got to the asset forfeiture clause. The part where everything, her condo, her car, even the art on her hallway walls would be liquidated and absorbed into repayment. I watched her soul detach somewhere around auction. Grant wasn't there. He was indicted separately. His trial begins next month. He fled to Belize. They dragged him back by his silk collar. Rumor is he flipped. Offered names. Probably hers. Poetic, really? The man she thought would rescue her tossed her into the water and kept the life jacket. But this update isn't about her anymore. This is about them. Because when the house burned, figuratively, for now, a few people came knocking at my door with old letters and even older bones. Turns out the firm my father built, Marigold Holdings, wasn't clean to begin with. I inherited something corrupted long before I arrived. My wife didn't invent the rot. She just recognized it. And she thrived in it. The land bank projects? They've been flipping fake ownership deeds since the late 80s. I found payment logs to offshore accounts in his handwriting. I found fake receipts stapled to photos of non-existent warehouses. And the worst part? There were names. My mother. My uncle. Even the family lawyer, the one who held my hand through probate while secretly billing me double hours for grief management. So I stopped trying to fix it. And I started planning a funeral. I drafted a full confession. Not to the police. Not to the board. But to the one entity no family legacy survives. The press. Not tabloids. Not TMZ. I sent it to 3 forensic financial journalists who hate corporate corruption the way arsonists hate fresh paint. I handed them every ledger, every signed check, every blacked out NDA. Anonymous tip? Nope. I signed it. Full name. With the line, if they bury me, make sure it's face up. I want to watch them fall in after. The article hit the wire in the early morning hours. By noon, 2 former board members resigned. By dinner, our family name was trending next to words like decades-long conspiracy, inheritance fraud, and funeral empire collapse. My phone didn't stop buzzing for 48 hours. Interviews. Death threats. Praise. Lawsuits. But the best one? A call from the Smithsonian. They were removing my father's name from the donor wall. Do you want to replace it with something else? They asked. I said, yeah. Just leave it blank. Let's talk about my daughter. She fled to Spain. No extradition, no consequences, at least not legal ones. But consequences have flavors. And I picked the bitterest one. Remember the trust fund? The one she believed was waiting for her at 25? It was real. But what she didn't know was this: I changed the conditions. You can't access a vault that no longer exists. Because 3 months ago I moved everything, what little was left, into a scholarship fund for orphans of financial fraud. Every cent. It's named after the janitor who worked at Marigold for 37 years and got nothing when they closed the doors. He used to bring me sandwiches when I worked late. He died broke. Now 50 kids will go to college in his name. My daughter's trust login still works. She can check it as often as she likes. It'll just redirect to a thank you page with his face. And a donation receipt she can't reverse. I haven't heard from her since. Now the fire. Yes, a literal one. Because I promised I'd end this story in flames. And here it is. The last thing my wife ever touched with the family crest on it was the wine cellar. She converted it into a spa retreat. Kept her imported oils and sauna stones in the same room my father stored war memorabilia and vintage scotch. She used it as a staging room for influencer content. Healing space, she called it. I called the fire department 2 weeks ago. Filed a tip about hazardous storage violations and exposed wiring near alcohol. I knew the house was being watched. I knew it was under evaluation for seizure. But the cellar wasn't insured, too niche. Too personal. When the alarm went off, it was already too late. The structure was intact. But that space? Ash. A symbol. Burned out from the bottom. Like a bad lung. She saw it on the news from her holding cell. They say she didn't speak for a full hour. Didn't cry. Just sat still, rocking slightly, whispering something no one could make out. Last I heard, she's negotiating a plea. She'll serve time. Not long. But enough. And when she gets out, there'll be nothing left. No name. No title. No daughter. No fortune. Just ashes. Oh, and one final humiliation. The retirement party venue? The hotel ballroom where she paraded me like livestock? I bought it. Anonymously, through a dummy trust. Renamed the space. It's now called the Mitch Suite. There's a plaque on the wall. Nothing grand. Just a single quote etched in steel. Don't underestimate the waiter. He might own the building. Final edit. I won't write again. I've said everything. I've done worse. But I sleep just fine. Because when people ask me what I do now, I say, I used to be a husband. Now I'm a historian. And history always burns cleaner after the wreckage is cleared.